Hi, everybody. It's Sherry St. Marie, and I'm super excited. Today I have Chris Smith with me, who I usually call Kristopher. You know why I call you
Either way.
Kristopher? Do you know why I call you Kristopher, though?
No,
I always LinkedIn. So,
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's
okay. So we're talking poker skills today, guys, and we're going to take you in all different realms back and forth. But let's talk about this name thing for 1 minute. I have known Kristopher for years, and I met him on LinkedIn. So I always refer to somebody by the way I see their name. He and I actually both are Midwest and Florida and a bunch of other things we'll talk about. But I've never called you Chris till today.
No, that's
It's,
either way.
it's throwing me off a little bit, actually.
Just don't call me late for dinner, right? I'm cool either way.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. But what I'm excited about to share with everybody is a couple of years ago, he and I started talking about poker. So we're going to get into that. And we mean it in two ways. And my job today is a little tricky. He gets to be smart. And my job is like tricky, agile.
This is going to go downhill quick then if I'm the smart one.
I'm just trying to pump you up, man. Let's go. Here's the two things, right? Here's the two things we're going to do today. We're going to talk. Our main focus is using poker skills for business because it's really an incredible, both analogy and real thing. And I'm going to do two things. Kristopher literally plays. So he literally plays poker. He's been in invite-only tournaments into Las Vegas and things like that. I have never been kicked off LinkedIn. So if you get me kicked off for teaching poker live, I have never been kicked off. So I'm putting that on you.
I've been in jail. It's okay.
My poker coach has been in LinkedIn jail. And we won't talk about that because
the food sucks there, but everything else is fine.
He told me that right before we put this live out. Sure, I'm in jail. Can I? And he's talking to me on the backside, and I'm like, what? Again, I've done a lot of kind of outrageous things, right? I push the envelope as a rebel for good, and I have never been kicked off the platform. So I'm going to carry us, and we're going to back up.
Perfect.
And do a real introduction, and I will be the one that watches for the live people. So thank you for everybody watching us live. I will do the multiple jobs of catching you and keeping it rolling and all that good stuff. But why don't you tell the people what you actually do in your different business avenues?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. So I'm a life insurance broker by trade, have been for 30 years. The first 10 were with a company called CNA in Chicago, Big Red Building in Chicago. And then in 2004, they sold their business and decided that they wanted to kind of consolidate what they did and get out of the life insurance business. So I was young, 29 at the time. I was the youngest senior life sales rep that CNA ever had in their 105 years, and really enjoyed the business. I love the connections, helping people. I'm sort of an empath by nature, so I like to help people. And the more that I can help people, the better my day goes. So I decided at that time, 2004 is when we started Midwest Life Brokerage. Almost 20 years now in business. Obviously, we've seen a lot of change in the life insurance space. Pre-COVID, it was a very paper-oriented business. Post-COVID, we had to adapt. And so I built out a whole bunch of technologies, Drop Ticket Life, Vegly Swap. We have apps in the app and the Apple Store and the Android Store that are free to use.
Awesome.
And we're just trying to connect people to life insurance as easily and quickly as we possibly can. So that's what I do in a nutshell. And we do it for about, I don't know, there's about 600 or 700 agents in our platform right now. And we're growing quickly. And I think part of that is our special sauce. What we provide as far as a value add and technology is a very simple add to an independent agent. So we're happy to connect with folks and help them write more business.
And what states are you working in?
I am licensed in, I believe the last count was 45 states. So I'm almost everywhere. There's a couple of the small ones in the Northeast that I'm not licensed in. But yeah, I mean, if we have a client somewhere that we need to get licensed up, that's not a big deal. That's time and money, right? Those are the easy things to do. So yeah, if we have a client somewhere where we're not licensed, we're happy to go ahead and get license for you.
And I have watched you grow in that, which is fun too. So you and I have had this connection on LinkedIn for years.
Yeah.
And we both lived in relative close states in the Midwest. And then down here, you're in Sarasota.
Running in
and
similar lanes. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're in Sarasota down here, and I'm in the Naples area. So we have those commonalities.
Yeah.
I'm going to just quickly say, for those who aren't used to me, I am Sherry St. Marie, and I do lots of things. And so today I'm specifically going to talk about, do you know why I'm not running this on my EXP real estate account?
No.
Because we're talking about poker.
And so
I don't want that.
You don't want to get banned from that. Yeah.
So the joke, people, is I have two channels that I run lives off of. One is the Sherry St. Marie brand. I do that for anything that's interesting in all topics and things. And then I have a Sherry St. Marie brokered by EXP for real estate related things. I thought I better keep it over on my personal name. And so that's where I am. But I really am a real estate broker for over 20 some years. I broker through EXP now. After 17 years independent, I'm in Wisconsin and Florida. I am also a co-founder of a commercial real estate development company that's international, which is exciting. So that's some of my new ventures that I've used the poker skills for. So let's move into this thing for the audience and for people to be able to see. And so how specifically did you get into actual poker playing?
Yeah. I mean, this is a long, drawn out story, but the quickest version is I have kids that are 24 and 19, right? So I had a lot of time and effort and man hours into coaching their softball or soccer, baseball, basketball, whatever. And that grew into high school sports, travel sports, right? And I actually, as a coach, became a pretty big deal. But, you know, we would coach AAU with, 40 college coaches watching our girls play basketball. We've got girls playing all over the country and getting 4-year scholarships that I'm extremely proud of. That
as you should be. So you realize, and the audience may or may not, I was a coach's wife for 107 years and did the whole, AAU and all that stuff. Yeah. One of my children's cousins is playing in the NBA, but you are also a girl dad. Yeah, my kids' cousins are. Yeah, my kids' cousins are the Hauser boys. So Sam Hauser and Joe Hauser are my kids' cousins. So Celtics for Sam, and we'll see where Joe goes. Right. So that's awesome. My point to you is just I'm very familiar with coaches. I've been with coaches for decades. It's an incredible accomplishment. It's a lot of skill building, right? Mm-hmm. And why you do it is the give to the person, right? And their maybe eventually family or whatever else. So it's an amazing thing. But I also want to commend you and bring it into the poker game of you being a girl dad. And so there are some people who are good girl dads and some who just claim the title. There's a huge difference. And so you and I have had this conversation about poker, and we have had this conversation about we women used to get taught, and I'm much older than the females that we're talking about now, but there was even a book written by a man of how to act like a man at work so that we can learn how to do a good job, get advances and those kind of things. Yeah. You and I have talked about you don't want your daughter doing that. You want your daughters, you want them just playing the game, playing business, learning, being themselves, right? Yep. And I would say there's no way in the world I'm showing up at a poker table acting like a man. So I could, watching, put on the glasses, put on the hat, get the cigar, right? And I have them right here in case I need them today. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show up at the table as just my own. What'd you say?
Maybe later. Maybe you put the stuff on later.
You watch me, pal. You're going to run it. I just forgot my hat, but I got everything else. So you'll run it for a while. I'll be right back. I'll tell you when. But that's some of the stuff that's also cool. So you were coaching and getting great accolades, which is a big, big thank you to you both on, you don't get paid for that. It's big, huge effort. But I understand because I was in that world for so long.
Yep.
The passion of that. Yeah. Yep. And so there's where you were. And then what happened?
Yeah. Then, I mean, literally, my daughter goes to high school, COVID hits, things sort of change with high school sports right in that year. Right. So she sort of bows out of AAU and puts a hard stop on everything. And, now I'm kind of wandering around the house. There's only so many times you can mow the grass in Chicago, right?
I understand that too.
Do it once every 10 or 14 days or so. And that's that. So, I had to find something else to sort of drive, my inner athleticism or inner competition, make sure that itch got scratched. Yep. I love playing cards. I've done it, definitely not professionally, but played with my friends as a high schooler and a college kid growing up. And I really love the sport of poker, even though you might not think it's a sport, so to speak, but it's, there is a lot to learn there. And then all of a sudden there was this great moment where it was like this connection to business. Like everything that I was doing Monday through Friday was over here. Everything I was doing with the poker tables over here. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, these things are sort of similar in a lot of aspects. And so, you and I have shared a lot about what we'll talk about here for the next 30 minutes or so. But I found a place to sort of give me that education. There's online places where you can learn to play without breaking your bank, or you could, fly off to Vegas and drop down 5 Gs and play in a real tournament if you wanted to. I got my education much cheaper than that. And so then, like what we were talking about, you start to see where, okay, the workload and what I do for a living is also sort of connected to this. So it was very interesting how I just sort of moved from AAU, the strategy of girls basketball and moving into the strategy of poker. And
okay, so just a second. Here's the thing I think is so fabulous and interesting. It intrigues me, it gets me. It's the intelligence of it, right? Like so many people don't also see that piece of it, of like, there's something super intriguing about the intelligence of playing live, having the ability to, you just did a move. Now, what am I going to do? It's the body language. It's the demeanor at the table. You and I have talked about, you were like calm, and I'm like, I'm excited because we're here and finally can talk about this after years of doing this stuff on the backside.
Yeah.
All of those moving pieces are super fun, I think. And I find them interesting. And I also know there's things that people at the table do or not do to affect your play. All that stuff's a great analogy for business as well. So I'm just going to check the chat. We got somebody here for us. Oh, somebody's making a comment about being a software engineer. All right, great. We'll come back to that comment. Okay, so you specifically decide you're going to play, and what I'm more intrigued about with you deciding to play is, I'm going to ask you a couple questions you didn't know are coming, because that's just how the table goes. This is, because you know me, I'm also inquisitive. Like, people see my TikToks that are like goofing around and whatever, but I'm also a deep thinker, and I'm a big, overall and little. So here's what I wonder about you. You go to your first tournament. Where is this, first of all? Just so we have a scene of what?
In Las Vegas or in
anywhere? Your very first tournament ever.
Oh yeah, so the first tournament ever. So there's a bar poker league here in Chicago where you can play for free, and you can literally get your education for nothing, right? You play Monday nights, and they do it 2 or 3 nights a week, and you go there, there's 30, 40 people to play. The skills range from really good to uber lucky, and everybody is in the middle of there. But again, there's no cost to play it, right? There's no bounty or need to feel like I'm going to lose something other than time. And if time is education, whether we're talking about insurance or real estate or poker, I'm willing to put a little bit of time in here, and it seemed like a pretty good proposition for us. So that's what I did.
So were you going to your first one just going, I don't need to look or act like anything, I'm just going to see how this thing goes? Or were you going in there competitive with your sports thoughts?
No, I'm always competitive by nature. I don't show up to lose very often. Even if, I don't know what I'm doing, you fake it till you make it is a pretty good mantra of mine. So yeah, I would, in the first tournament I played in, I won. So I think there were 38 or 39 people that first night in April 2 years ago. And I just walked in there and won the tournament. It was fun. The people were nice. Everybody congratulated me on the way out. I had a great time. So I went back again the next week and I won again. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. So, I don't expect to win every single time, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, of course. But, but okay. Yeah.
A little bit of success up front doesn't necessarily hurt the ego either. So yeah, that's literally how I just got into it. Found a local league here that was cheap. They had these leagues everywhere too. So if you wanted to learn how to play poker, you can do it online, or you can find a bar somewhere that you can do it for nothing.
But you said something important. You said, and I laughed because it's just awesome. And it was, I don't show up to lose, right? Yeah. That's the like bravado any of us can carry, right? Yeah. Whether we're openly showing it or we're not.
Sure.
And I think that's a great skill. Poker players are different people. They are, because they can ride. They like They like some risk. They can ride it. They can bow out. They can, so those are different business skills than a lot of people think about.
Right.
That are the great build part of some of what you and I have been learning and doing. And I think that part's cool. But what did you tell yourself is my real question about that first tournament of what are you saying to yourself the very first time you're showing up at that table in terms of self-talk? And we'll talk more about, self-confidence later. That's what I want to know.
Definitely nerve-wracking, right? Because you know that you're walking into a group of people that maybe I knew 3 or 4 of those people out of the 40 that were there. Everybody else seemed relatively nice, right? I didn't feel like anybody was going to chew my head off or anything, but I didn't know the etiquette as well as I do today. I didn't know the pace of the play or anything like that. So I had a lot to ingest while I was learning to fit in there as another common poker player. So it was fun. I think that happens a lot in business too. When we're trying to reach out to that new client or we're trying to reach out to that new connection or maybe it's somebody like you and I that are running in different lanes but sort of similar activities. You just want to be a good steward for yourself, and you don't want to cause too much commotion, but you want to figure out what you can do and how you can help folks get to where they want to go, because that's ultimately the most important thing.
Absolutely. So I want to give a shout out to Rick. Rick's up in Canada. Rick attends my lives on almost every subject. Cool. And so it's awesome. He's up there. He's tied to the hockey industry. So that's kind of fun and awesome to see you, Rick. I'm going to perfect segue when you said it can go to business. So I'm going to give you the swing of what you just talked about, going to your first tournament, to just one of my recent bigger, I've been practicing this stuff on the backside and connotating the analogy to business. And so here's me. And I haven't shared this with anybody, so I'm going to do this with you because, of course, that's the best, right? Yeah. I had one of my first biggest meetings in business ever at the end of March. I couldn't have had more things going on, which I was super appreciative to, because it meant my family was down here. My son was down here, who's in commercial real estate and finance. I was meeting his significant girlfriend for the first time. We are kicked out of our condo that we're at because I had to give it to somebody else for something. And we're over at a place where I don't know the internet. I'm coming into a meeting of all men because it's always me and men. I am the only US citizen. We are talking with 2 billionaires that would like to do business with us. 3 of these people I do not know, and they're all over the world.
You're checking all the heart attack boxes. That's all of them. Every last one of them.
But you know what? Like, okay, you're a little sweaty, but I was like, oh my gosh, like the internet just has to hold. And like, my son is there and his girlfriend, and they're doing business down here, but also, the personal stuff. And I'm like, I just need the corner of this internet to work and hold for this thing because I've never met these people before. Yeah. And it was the exact same feel of, I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to behave here. I don't know exactly what to do here. It's incredibly hot in Florida. So I'm not down here usually covered anymore because it's just hot. And so I am running the table right off the edge of the island in the kitchen of facilitating these guys on our conversation of, do we want to do a joint venture? Do we not? I learned so much from my first poker table in that the disservice I did to myself was worrying it all about what did they think and were they okay? That's a very US woman. We're usually in my age generation geared to people pleasing and things like that. Stopped it immediately after about the first 3 minutes because I could see what was going on. And the attitude is, I don't know for sure if we want to play with you, right? Right. Yeah. I'm not going to act like I want your chips. I may not want your chips. And in fact, we ended up not wanting their chips. Like, thank you, but no thank you, right? Yeah. And that to stand up there, and I had to be the one of, the 8 of us didn't know each other, except I knew my 2 business partners, and didn't know what the agenda was. And I'm supposed to keep it rolling and keep them going. And if they offend each other, I got to pull it back in, right? And I am not the pit boss I'm not playing. I am a co-founder in this deal of what we're doing. Yeah. That to stand up and do that and sweat, and it connotates back to sports, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I do live broadcasts. When you can record, it's too easy. You have no skin in the game. You don't have the sweat of like, oh my gosh, do I have everything set up? Are we good to go? What are we going to do if we crash live? How do we, and all that stuff makes us good. Yeah. Right. So that part is awesome. What we're going to do is move into a couple different categories that you and I were going to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to first tell them, I'm sorry, I'm talking so much for a minute. And this is it. So you heard how Chris started playing, and he literally plays and he uses it for business.
Mhm.
And then I use the connotation. I'm not actually at a poker table, and I'll tell you why. So huge disclosure, this was not Chris. This was a different guy on LinkedIn years ago who saw me, my appearance, my posts, and whatever on LinkedIn. And what he was doing was getting women to pay to get into a poker tournament to teach them, because they didn't know how to speak to a CEO, right? So I'm going to charge you ladies to come to our poker table that we're running. We're going to bring in plants of men, one at each table, to be the CEO poker player. And we're going to teach you how to play. My issue with it was he needed me because he couldn't get the women to sign up for a seminar, his poker games. Why did he need me? Because he needed me to bait the women in, right? He needed me to be the one to go, come on, ladies, let's do this. This guy will teach you. And I set up a meeting with him to say, okay, explain this to me. What are you doing and whatever? He was making big bucks, huge bucks, running seminars that were primarily to teach women to play poker. And there's some need for that, right? In business. I get that. Sure. I just wasn't okay with him. If you can't get them yourself, pal, I am not your pony. I'm not your trick pony to get the ladies in, to use the ladies, to charge the ladies, to tell them they don't know how to talk to men and people in business. So, but what happened, same as you, when you caught on to, I played my first tournament and then I realized, oh, there's some connotation towards business here. Mm-hmm. The aha went off with what he was doing. I didn't trust him. I'm not going to let him teach me. If I don't trust you, I'm not going to let you teach me. That we should all be that way, right? Yep. But you and I were already talking, and I didn't know you were literally playing. And then you made a post on LinkedIn, and I was like, here's the deal. I already trust you. I already like you. I'm already comfortable with you. What are you doing? And so I called you to say, hey, you need to be my poker coach. I want to learn about this. What are you doing, right? And then you and I started having conversations every once in a while of teach me a little something. So you teach me a concept, and then I go out and work it for a while, right? And then I come back, teach me something else,
right?
Which can be amazing. And so that's the bad way I got onto the idea that tossed me into a better way of how to do it that I was comfortable with.
Sure.
And I think that part is cool.
Awesome.
So I'm going to let you take over about this piece while I go grab something. So can you talk to us for a minute about literal poker play and this whole thing about, I'm bailing on you because you challenged me, appearance at the poker table and the things that people are doing. And we're going to tie it back into the analogy of business, in terms of negotiations and things like that. But just, appearance, behavior, and those kind of things at the table. And I'll be right back.
All right, cool. Yeah. So, I think the best place to start is everybody at the poker table is equal, right? You've got whether you want to appear like you've got a hand or not, and similarly in business, you could just have a moment where everything is perfect and your appearance is perfect, or you could have the facade that everything is not perfect and maybe the cards are good. There's all sorts of ways to play that poker table. When I started in the insurance industry a long time ago, back in '95, I really learned from the ground up, right? I learned how to enter the applications, what each form meant. I moved on from being a data entry person to a marketing coordinator, to a salesperson, and then to a senior salesperson before CNA sold. And so I really understood the each aspect of what we were doing there. If you wanted to be a learner of your game in industry, obviously, oh boy, look out. There's a ton of books out there where you can learn about what sort of appearance or behavior you should have at the table, a lot like what Sherry's showing us here. All of a sudden my heart rate just went up a little bit. I don't know if you've got a good hand or a bad hand, but I know all of a sudden now you're here.
Are you more nervous when I smile or when I don't smile? That's what I want to know.
When you smile or don't smile?
What makes you more nervous, if I smile at the table or if I don't?
Yes, that actually makes me more nervous.
Ladies, pay attention to that.
That makes me far more nervous. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know, there was I played last night for a couple of hours, and you know, there was a woman that sat across from me, and every time she had something, she would look at me just completely stone faced, and I'm like, oh God, you know, I know I'm going to lose this, but I got to play this hand. So I played it and I lost, and I did that 3 or 4 times, and I finally quit playing her. I was like, you know what, you're in a hand, I'm not, and you know, we kid a lot, stuff like that. But yeah, when you're a little more happy, that's when you make me far more nervous than if you were like.
Okay, but let me tell you something. Going to business. So clearly I don't do that. Not every poker tournament does that. So that is actually Kristopher. When we did the promo for this class, that is Kristopher playing up in the corner. Oh, yeah, I couldn't tag him in the photo because of the way that. Yeah, he was in Vegas. And so I'm laughing because he's got his hood up, right? And he's, you know, everybody's just got their glasses. In real life, I would be the shittiest player. If I had to play, I would. Listen, here's why though. Have you not found this about me?
What, that you can't hide anything inside? You're just over and over and over.
I talk with my face. I talk with my face. However, what I have learned, because in a business meeting, of course, I'm not sitting there with my glasses on and my whatever, but this is what I have learned is that there's certain ways I have to control my face because I'm 110% a face talker and I'm a hand talker. Mm-hmm. And so part of what I had to learn specifically in these Zoom meetings where I've got all these men that are in all these different realms, I tone it down because I'm watching what they're doing and things like that. But you would not believe how much a smile in 2 seconds on a little, because I'm in there for intuition. You and I are both empaths. Mm-hmm. Some of that's hard, but some of that's an amazing skill. Mm-hmm. One of the things my owners, business partners like about me is the fact I can pick up on intuition in 2 seconds. Watching the moves and the plays on the Zoom screen in this example, but I can do it in a meeting personally, right?
That's all it takes. Yep. I got
That's an amazing skill. And so what happens a lot is my 2 business partners will watch as these other guys aren't used to me, right? They're coming into the first meeting with me and they're just like, they may or may not have Googled me, which is a horrid thing to do because you'll see all kinds of crazy things, but they're not prepared for me to be a serious, smart player, right?
Yeah.
And some of that is hugely beneficial. We aren't doing it on purpose. Yeah, I'm being myself. But it is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead. Anything else you want to share about behavior or appearance? You're done? No. You're like, I'm done.
No, that's good.
Okay, let me just move us to the next topic. And I'm also going to just double check the chat while you're doing that. So one of the things that you want to share is this concept. Anything coming across the banner are concepts that we want to share with you guys about, and I 110% agree with you, of being a learner at the game or in your industry.
Yep. So I started this with the last topic too, and I sort of veered off there a little bit. But, you know, when I started in the insurance industry a while ago, you know, I literally started degrees out of college and started in the data entry of insurance applications solely because I had a shoulder injury that I had to have surgically repaired. So I couldn't go out and meet people and do anything. I was like, just give me 90 days here. I'm going to learn this. I don't even know if I want to be in the insurance industry. Actually, the only class I ever failed in college was insurance. So here we are 30 years later. I'm still doing it.
But that's a great story.
Well, it's a terrible story, but it's a
great story. Yeah. It's a great story. Do you know why?
Why any insurance company would ever trade a penny for $1. And I just did not get it. But here we are 30 years later, and that's what I do for a living, is trade pennies for $1.
I think it's a great story. I used to be a teacher, right? And this is why I think it's a great story. That's a great story. Do you know how people have failed and then become incredibly successful in the industry, which you have?
Yeah.
And you go, why? Because you learned everything, right?
Yeah,
you challenged it. Yep. You questioned, and then you obviously believe in it clearly, and you're obviously intelligent and good at it. That's why that's a great story.
Yeah. Oh, well, I do appreciate that. And people have told me that. I just sort of, it's very strange, but that is the truth. That's the God's honest truth. That's the only help I ever got in college. But yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of places where you can learn the game of poker, right? You can get online like we talked about already. There's books. I've got 4 or 5 books over my shoulder here that I read every now and then. just if I want to light read or whatever. And most of those are stats based. I'm learning about the stats and when you're in a hand and what the cards that the other guy could have. And there's a lot of numbers that fly around there. I'm a numbers guy by trade. I like that. So read a ton of books. I actually journal a lot too, both in business and for poker. And I've learned that the poker journal just in the last like 4 or 5 months to journal, to don't be upset about what happens at the poker table. Journal one hand that you won, journal one hand that you lost.
But wait a second, that is a huge business coaching thing right there.
Yeah.
Because first of all, a lot of people don't journal.
Yeah.
Second of all, a lot of men don't journal because they weren't really taught the enjoyment or skill or benefit of it, right?
Yeah.
But then for you to say you both journal in terms of business, which I get, it is whenever we finish a deal or something, it's like, what did you learn? What could you do better next time? We're not talking about the lost thing, right? But for you to also do it about poker, the amount of value you're giving yourself by having that discipline and also that creative freedom to use that tool the way you are is really smart.
No, I do appreciate that. And I've seen I've actually thought at the poker table, even in the last 4 weeks or so, like, is this the hand that I really want to put in the journal? And it sort of slows me down, right? It sort of reconnects me to not only that hand, but to the game in the larger part. So it is very interesting how it does help.
I think that's brilliant. You're doing that. I don't hear other people doing that in business as a regular practice. Maybe I've heard it once or twice, but to pull the pieces in of analyzing your poker game and yourself evolving is really good.
Yeah, it's cool. It works. It does work.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's the be a learner. Like just always keep learning, whether it's on websites or whether it's books or whether, that obviously goes much more for your industry than it does for poker, but the two definitely connect. There's a strong connection there.
Well, they do. And I'm like over 20 years in real estate. Everybody thinks it's just, it's residential and this is what I'm doing. As a woman, started out in construction right away. I love the dirt. So I did existing, but I love new construction. I love the idea of talent being pulled together to create something that you can live or work or what. I've always been that way.
Sure.
What I love about the real estate industry, most people don't understand, is that we have so many different specialties we can work in over time, so many different things we can learn. I just became a certified international property specialist. There's commercial and all these things that we can be doing. That's also the learn the industry, learn the game piece, which is awesome.
Definitely.
All right. This one I think is super important and most people won't talk about it. So I want to talk about it.
You want to go?
You first teach the concept.
Me first?
You first
Okay.
teach the concept. Yeah.
This is, on the macro, this is the old fake it till you make it, right? Keep baby steps moving forward every day. In poker, you literally cannot win a tournament without risking your chips, without risking your money. If you just blind yourself out, right? Every 6, 8, 9 hands, whatever it is, they're going to take a little piece of your poker chips from you just to get the action going. And if you never play a hand, you're going to blind out after 3 or 4 hours of sitting there watching your chips go away. So, what I try to tell folks, especially where it connects with me, is with poker you have to pick your places, you have to pick your spots, and it's not like I'm going to pick my spot a year from now or 6 months from now or whatever. I mean, it's you got to pick your spot within the next maybe the rotation of the table or whatever it is. So sometimes it's very important to decide, okay, maybe this isn't a great hand, but I gotta really go for it because this might be my last best chance to do something. So yeah, I mean that's sometimes you just have to, and to that end point, you have to bluff your way through it, right? If you're not getting the cards or whatever, you just have to say, look, this is a great hand, I'm going all in, and maybe it's not the best hand, but you got to at least put on a facade to do it. And in business, I think that goes with any business or service or product that you could provide, right? If somebody might do it a little bit better, faster, stronger, but at the same time, if you could provide value, whether it's in a product or service to that end client, again, that's where you gotta put your money in, and maybe that's an advertising dollar, maybe that's a social media time and effort, whatever it is, but you have to invest that in order to make make 2, 3, 4, 10x of what you're making, and why we're all in business, right? So
yes. And so here's how I reacted to that when you taught me. I literally look at that. That's a great, like my mom used to do this. Like if you were not thinking of something straight or whatever, it's like you get a thump in the head or the chest or whatever, like, because it makes you kind of go aback of like, what?
Yeah. Oh.
You said scared money doesn't make money. And it's like, we've heard levels of that, but those wordings together as a poker and business term are a great wake up, because it reminds every one of us, if we're not going to take the risk, you have no gain, right? But the bigger aha thump to me was, it helps me a ton moving into this bigger arena I'm doing. So I'm a risk taker. So a lot of people may not see that, but like, here's why I'm a risk taker. I come from nothing. I come from public housing projects. I come from a trailer park. I didn't have those things. And so when you were teaching me this, and I was getting into this bigger arena of being able to do bigger deals, I was not used to having even one other person I work with. I was a high school marketing teacher in my own classroom. Then I was a real estate broker, now broker associate for 20 some years. I'm an independent contractor. I work with myself. I have a teammate I can jump onto of 88,000 agents around the world, but it's just little me doing the things.
Sure.
And I schlep painting my signs and what I had to learn was scared money doesn't make money means you got to be all into this thing, because when you're not scared, well, first of all, when we're scared, we behave differently. I can tell you that just with our kinesthetics, right? If I'm scared, you can tell, you can feel it on me. You and I are empaths. We can feel it on somebody, right? Much more than a lot of people.
Sure.
When you're scared, you can't do good business. You can't. And so you got to stay on the ground. You got to keep it level. But the scared money don't make money is, this was mine. And I know you talk about it a little bit later. I got nothing to lose. And that's a really awesome place to be.
Yeah.
It's a really awesome place to be.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk about risk since we started into this. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is one that, again, personally, with the competitive spirit that I have sort of oozing out of me, this is one that was really tough for me to kind of get over. And it's okay to take risks, and it's okay to lose every now and then, maybe not all the time, but for poker, I used to think that the going all in or getting all my chips in and then losing was so hyper embarrassing. Like it was to the point where, you take that, you grab your bag or your water or whatever you bring, and you stand up and you have the walk of shame where you're walking to the door and you feel bad. But, really, again, if you're using analogies, like baseball, poker players don't win every single time, and baseball players, the analogy there again, if you make an out 70% of the time, you're in the Hall of Fame. If you're getting on, if you're getting a hit 30% of the time, so you really do kind of have to keep it in perspective there. Nobody, like I said, nobody always wins. With business, it's the same. You got to try new things, right? You got to be willing to take that risk. You got to be willing to pick up that phone over there and call somebody that you don't know, or you got to be, lately what we've been doing here for Drop Ticket. I'll back up and tell one quick story too about
it's great
for poker. The very first tournament I played in Las Vegas was just this past January. In
I remember that.
We were invited to a big tournament. There's 250 people out there. The top prize in this Sunday tournament was a $10,000 seat to the World Series of Poker, like the big tournament you see on ESPN and stuff like that. And so I sit down at a table, and I'm nervous, obviously.
Of course.
And there are a lot of people around that have been here before, and I haven't to this extent. I know some of the people at the table. I know that there's last year's champion sitting across from me. I know that there's a guy to my left, that there's somebody there from Poker News that they're doing an article on him playing poker at my table. And the eventual winner of the 2023 tournament was also at my table, sitting in seat 8 next to the dealer. And so I had last year's winner, this year's winner, and a guy that was there having pictures taken of him professionally as we're playing poker. I was scared to death, right? I was And
And I totally get it. I'm not laughing because listen,
no,
I
yeah.
feel like that so often,
Mhm.
and people don't get it on me.
Yeah.
But I totally relate to that, and
Yeah.
I totally relate to the, oh my God, you just lost in front of everybody, and the vulnerability of standing up to do that. I relate to that vulnerability. I'm used to the lose because I'm in real estate. Like we lose more often than we
Insurance
win.
too.
So
Yep.
so I'm used to losing. I'm a
Yep.
pretty good winner, but I'm used to losing. But the whole, while everybody's looking at you and
Yeah.
watching, and you're handling yourself with
Yeah.
everything going on, and just the strength, that's not the right word, to show up there even though you're feeling that way, or I felt that way certainly in business, is an amazing skill.
There's an old adage at the poker table: if you can't spot the sucker in the first 30 minutes, you are the sucker.
Ooh.
So you also really have to kind of be cognizant
Okay.
of that as well. So I like where the story sort of fits in for this topic is,
Yeah.
you know, I decided at that moment, like, okay, whatever happens today is going to be cool. I'm in Las Vegas playing poker in a tournament that I qualified for.
Yeah.
I'm probably not as good as these folks here, but they don't know that, right? I know that, but they don't know that. So why tell
And maybe
them?
you're wrong.
And maybe I'm wrong. So, you know, it ended up that I played at that table for 9.5 hours with those people, all of those people. And still, I got knocked out. I think there was 250 that started, and I got knocked out in like 53rd place. And I walked out, no walk of shame there, man. I was so excited. I made, 3 really good friends. I actually made 8 or 9 really good friends at that table.
That's
and
awesome.
it was just a blast. So again,
awesome.
if we relate that back to business, put yourself in uncomfortable positions. It's okay to, connect to where you're not feeling uber comfortable in a spot, and see what happens. And if you lose, you lose. If you lose, if it's time wasted, or if you invest $1,000 in advertising and it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world by any means. So,
well, and let's talk about this for a minute since you're on this, and maybe it'll come up later, but this is my thought while you're talking. And that is, did you really win or lose? Because until we closed, we don't know. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. No, that's
of managing that.
There were points in that tournament for sure where I was like, hey, wait a minute, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is supposed to happen. Why not me? And you get into sort of that craziness. But it was a great learning experience for me. It was a great thing to take away from that table. And that Sunday game was after I played poker for probably 12 or 13 hours per day, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So, I mean, I was somewhere between uber fried on poker and loving what I was doing. And, I had no idea what actually was going on, but it was just great. It was great to take that risk. It was fine to lose. Again, it was that education for me where I was like, hey, listen, I didn't lose anything. I made some friends that I still connect with over socials, and where I'm hoping to see those guys again next year. Hopefully they sit at different tables than I do, but just a great way to connect with folks where I want to be, right? I want to be the winner of the next year's tournament, or I want to have Poker News come out and do an article on me. So I thought that was really, really a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And you and I both agree totally. We would never bet something we really can't lose. Like, we're not talking about reckless anything.
No.
We're talking about, I'm willing to take this risk because I can survive if it is a loss. I could be happy if it's a win, right?
Of course. Yep.
And so that part's good. And my concept is that so many people are emotionally vetting themselves on, it happens in real estate, happens in business, happens at the poker table. I've lost this, I've won this. No, you haven't. Until the game is completely done, until the house is completely closed, you didn't win or lose anything. This is all artificial money and psychology we're talking about. When you're saying I'm up and I'm down, we're nowhere till you close out, right?
Exactly right.
That's part of what's helpful, is getting out of that talk of I'm winning or I'm losing. It's just keep the facts together, Yep. So this part is what gets interesting. And in terms of strategies or things like that. So talk a little bit about this, angles and odds.
Angles and odds. Yeah. So I'm going to start with business first here. When I was first working at CNA, this goes back again to the late 90s. I had an agent that was doing a whole lot of business with me, right? They giving me good business. We were placing it all. Everybody was making good money, and things were great. And then I had a new boss came in and the boss came to me and said, hey, this guy that's writing a lot of business, you should probably pay him more. And I said, well, if I pay him more, then I'm going to make him mad because he should have been getting more for the last, like 10 years or whatever that we were working together. So, I decided that wasn't a very good angle, right? It was the better angle was he doesn't know what he doesn't know, and let's just keep status quo, and everybody kind of move on. With all the stuff that we've been kind of talking about so far today, there's a lot of that in the business side, right? We work on angles or leverage or the odds, the implied odds. Where are we in a hand, right? With poker, you got a lot of things to consider. You've got to consider who's in the hand, how much equity they have, or how many chips they have in their stack. The effective odds are how many chips could be in play versus how many chips are at the table. Implied odds are what are your odds to win the hand as you're going along. Maybe it's pre-flop, maybe it's after the flop, maybe it's as the cards are being shown. Blockers, right? Blocker cards we talk about in poker all the time. If somebody is looking to go for a straight or a flush, let's just say they're going for a straight, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but I hold 2 8s, it's harder for them to get their straight. So I got to fix my odds there because I own part of their value prop in what they're doing. Everything sort of, again, translates back to business. How can we set ourselves in angle ourselves to make sure that we're helping the right people, the people that want to be helped, right? I talk to insurance agencies and companies all the time that a lot of those people just don't want any support. They want to go status quo, and that's that. And while I think that's maybe not their best move, I'm not really the person to say what they should or shouldn't be doing. The other thing too is, the engine, Drop Ticket Life, the billboard that I have behind me is a life insurance quote engine that we built 3.5 years ago. We saw the need to build it because we wanted to show people, hey, there could be a soup to nuts application process where a client can go in, quote life insurance, buy life insurance without talking to an agent like me or anybody else, and really move through the process in a completely self-service environment. Then another angle that I found was, hey, there are federal employees out there that a lot of them have life insurance, but they're paying too much in their group life plan. So I built an entire new website for federal employees. I'm playing another angle, right? Where we built it for them to show them, this is your rate for federal employees, and this is your rate if you buy it through us. And then we decided to do the same thing for service members that are transitioning into becoming veterans, doing the same thing. Here's your rate as a veteran for group life versus here's what you could get through us. So any angle that you can find, right? If it fills a need, right, do it. And, absolutely. And, help people. So that's that. Steve Jobs had a great quote. And I go back to this at least once a week. Where can we take the customer? It says nothing about us as people of service or product. It has everything to do with the consumer. And so that, I really try to keep that front of mind whenever I'm doing stuff in my business.
Yep. And I think that odds thing too, I don't know if it is probably maturing in longevity. I am very much at a place where I'm 55 now. There's certain things I don't have time for anymore. Sure. And there's a blessing in that. And I appreciate it, where I go, you know what, you're a great human. It's lovely, but I don't think this is going to work out. I'm not taking those odds, right? I'm not doing that. I am looking at odds in terms of, we were joking the other day about with some of my business partners with these development things. It's like, we're more than getting married. Like, wait a second, because it is like legal, financial, huge commitment for 5 years, 10 years, maybe 15. And I'm like, it's a huge decision, right? And so I a little bit joke about it, but I had to have like the serious with my guys of like, are we for real? Or every deal we're looking at, we are looking at vetting the people to go, I mean, really, do we want to be legally and financially married for a long haul? Like, I got to make sure this is good odds, that the angles are good. We're talking about poker. Most of what I do in my actual business is really collaboration. So we're not looking to go forget you. So we soften the poker skills. But that is a play of angles and odds for me now that is actually super refreshing and good, because I can only do so many things yet. and I can only work with so many people. So I'm going to pick the best angle and the best odds.
Sure.
And that has put me into a level where I used to say yes to everybody I could because I was that empath, right? And
Yep,
I'm like,
yep. Yes,
can't,
yes, yes,
man,
yes, yes.
I'm
I can
playing
help.
my final games, right? What'd you tell me? Let's bring up this topic. The final tournament or something. Do you remember this when you talked to me about this? I hate to put you on the spot like that, but playing your last tournament was something like this concept that I don't remember the exact wording you taught me a couple months ago. Sorry to put you on the spot about that.
I don't know.
Okay, well, here's what it is. I'm going to throw it back at you, teacher. This is the concept of like, this is how I remember it when you taught it to me. And it was something of the concept of your final tournament, you know, that like, if this is going to be your last tournament, and we don't mean it to be in a negative way, it can be massively empowering of like, if this is your last tournament and you get to pull together your skills and your opportunities and what do you want to be playing in this last phase of your tournaments, you're not going to be playing in these crap leagues. You're not going to be playing with bad people. You're just not going to be doing that. But it kind of like, that's what started. You probably don't realize this, but a couple months ago when you said that to me, I was like, that's what got me so serious with these guys on these big, huge deals. I'm like, oh, I mean, like if this is it and what I'm spending.
Think about what I said then, geez.
It had an impact on me, but that's good. It really made me go, oh my gosh, like if this is my last tournament, but it was in a super positive, great way because little tiny me as a Midwest mom originally could have never played in this kind of a final tournament.
But here you
had
are.
you not said that to me and I started going, okay, wait a second. And we fired some people and got some different people and whatever. Yeah. It's a good concept, you know, and not everybody learns that across the way.
It was something to do with the stages of our lives, right? Because we were talking about having that next big thing. I do remember the conversation. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was far more macro than, you know, getting into the weeds or anything. But it was about, you know, like you're really going to connect with this next client for the next 10 years. How do you get started on that now? And man, you took that to heart. If you're talking with,
I absolutely did. You know, so, you know, I'm a wordsmith.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm a wordsmith. I love, like, you know, socially iconic song lyrics, all that stuff. And so those two words together for me, final tournament, which of course we'll go back to sports, right? Any kid can relate to that. The last time they get to play, the whatever. But it was those two words together made me really go, oh my gosh, you know, what do we want to do here? That's so awesome. That was awesome. You taught me a lot. You probably looking at my teacher didn't even know.
No,
I appreciate it. Here's
great.
The thing that's super important of this concept of even if you're winning or losing, keep going. I want to focus on the keep going part because that's the part where so many people crash. So talk to us about that.
Well, I think with this topic, I think many people don't feel momentum, right? They don't feel momentum unless it's bad momentum. And I've fallen into that trap 1,000 times, right? I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else for sure.
None of us are.
Where things are bad and you're just struggling to get that next big deal or the next big thing, and you know it's one of those things where you just want to win, right? So, but then what happens when you get that win, right? Do you go out and go on vacation for 2 months because you got somebody to say yes, or you know, with again the poker analogy is very simple. The more chips you have, the less you actually risk versus your opponent. So if you have 10,000 chips and your opponent only has 2,000 chips, if you make a bet of 500 chips, that doesn't affect me very much. It's going to affect him or her quite a bit. And so, you know, we always look at that momentum, keep building momentum, take those baby steps, get past, you know, seize that positive momentum at any time, whether it's business or whether it's a poker tournament. And there are great ways in business for sure. You know, I always reward myself with a little bit of something, whether it's a dinner out or whether it's you know, anything. It could be anything. But you know, going to see the guys, or maybe even playing a poker tournament for cash, you know, here locally. But there's always something in business when I win, I reward myself, and I found that breeds more winning, breeds more rewarding, breeds more winning, and so on and so on. And so that's always kind of worked for me. If you win and stop, you know, that's a tough one to get the ball rolling again. So, you know, always roll that thing downhill, whether it's poker or business, and you know, just keep it going, seize that positive momentum, and you know, leverage it as much as you can.
And I think you and I both know this from sports. Like until the last buzzer goes, man, you're not done.
Yep.
There's so many times we thought we were dead with 2 seconds left and like a 3
Yep.
or a whatever, right?
Yep.
I know it from real estate in that I'm used to thinking we're dead and you never quit. Like this is what you do. So they will tell you, oh gosh, the deal's done. There's no way. This is what I learned way back 20 years ago when I first started as an independent real estate broker was I can't be on the roller coaster with my people and do a good job. So I can't be on this emotional, oh my gosh, the inspection, oh my gosh, the funding, oh my gosh, the insurance. Yep. I have to do this and keep it, even if I'm feeling for them, because I very much do. I take every deal like it's my family. It makes me good and it's also hard on me. But I am of the, never quit till you know there's not one other option. And sometimes in real estate, we'll be told there's just no way, even day before closing or morning of closing. I have 20 some years into, like, we don't quit until we know there's not one more option, right? Or I'm in situations now with these bigger deals that we're evaluating or checking, do we want to do them or whatever? They're huge highs and lows. It's like, oh my gosh, look at what they're wanting us to do right now. We're spending months and sometimes, up to a year looking at a deal and then it's dead. Right. And you go, okay, that's the part you have to learn how to manage. This was interesting. I will say this a little clouded so that you don't know who this is. But so we're in a deal where 2 people that were with me were like, Sherry, we're dead, we're done. And I'm like, we are not. Like one of the big players was out. The other person was like, Sherry, I'm not going. And I go, I had to take a risk, right? And I said, I'm going to the poker table. I'm still showing up because we've spent months to get this meeting. We don't know for sure until we finish this thing out. And I showed up and I'm like, I'm showing up whether you guys are showing up or not. Right. Well, then the one guy showed up. Right. And because you just don't know. Down the road, we ended up deciding, no, thank you. But you can't bail because of emotions or reactions to things. And there's a lot of vetting that goes on in both poker and business. Right. So I'm thankful, especially as a female, to have developed that skill because I don't buckle. I don't buckle like you might think. I can feel it emotionally because I'm like, so I'm sensitive and that's just gonna be part of me. But when we get into those things, particularly when it's not for myself, I'm a better player, I'm a better business when it's not for myself. So when I go, this is for my kids, even though they're adults, or this is for my business partners, I'm 110% better. And I can be a ton stronger and a better advocate and watching the table and all that stuff than if I'm just myself where I go, I can work at McDonald's and serve coffee. I'll be fine.
Focus on the consumer, right? That's
exactly. Yep. All right. Here's our last category. And that's, we talked a little bit about this learning, how to win and lose, but the focus is with class. That I think is really important.
Yep. We had again, if I start on the poker side, there was a state tournament that I qualified here for that free network that they invite only the people that win at the bars to go and play a state tournament for the right to go to Las Vegas, so I won this tournament that I'll talk about, but it was only 22 people, but it was 22 people that had won tournaments at all different places in Illinois, which was great. It was a lot of fun. And so we get down to the final 3 people and the final 2 people get to go to Las Vegas, right? They give us $500, whatever it was, and buy our plane ticket and off we go. And the guy in third, I'll tighten this story up a little bit, but
that's okay.
The guy in third literally says halfway through one of the very final hands, he's like, I got to go to the bathroom. And the tournament director's like, well, we don't care. We got to finish the tournament. The clock doesn't stop. So he gets up, does his thing. He comes back, all his chips are gone because he blinded out. Remember, we talked about if it's your turn to put some chips in, you have to put them in. You don't have the option. And so he literally blinded out of the tournament. He came back, and it's the only time that I've ever seen anybody throw a glass of beer at a poker tournament. He came back and he took his beer and he bang right on the ground. And everybody, there were 10 or 12 of us there. We were absolutely stunned silence. And obviously that's on the more crazy side of what you should or shouldn't do at a poker table. But I've seen stuff at AAU. I've seen stuff even in Pee-wee baseball leagues where, the dads are talking with each other and the kids are right there playing a game and they're just acting like fools. So, the more that we can, keep our level heads, whether it's business, whether it's poker, obviously that's a way. So, I had a conversation with somebody last night, and it was the same woman that kept beating me over and over on on where I felt I had good cards and she felt like she had better, so she kept coming at me. And she's like, "Are you getting mad at me?" And I'm like, "I never, ever, ever get mad at a poker table about poker, about a player, right? It's everybody gets 5 cards to play."
That's amazing, though.
So, and that's that. So, yeah, I think it translates into business too, right?
Of course it does.
If your brand or boss doesn't give you what you think you need, are you going to overcome it? Are you going to get through it? Are you going to quit? Sometimes in business, they're sort of teasing you or seeing what your visceral reaction is going to be.
110%. Don't skate over that. Say that again. That's huge.
The visceral reaction to seeing how you react to a setting, right? So
yeah.
there's always someone watching. I tell kids this all the time. There's always someone watching on social, or even maybe your next job employer. If something doesn't go wrong at that job, or your next partnership or whatever, everybody's watching all the time. So click a little bit of class and maybe you're a little butthurt about how things went, but stand up, walk away. It's all good. I used to one last story with AAU. I used to tell my parents all the time, look, if something goes bad, we're all going to feel bad about it. So there's no reason to come to me about it. There's no reason to yell at a referee about it. There's no reason to escalate anything. Take 24 hours. If it's still a big deal, call me, email me. I'll talk to you all day long about it. But inside of that first 24 hours, I don't want to hear a word. And you can't imagine how many times we had like this thing on a Sunday afternoon that would feel like the biggest thing in the world. And all of a sudden Monday afternoon would come. Nobody's calling me. Nobody's making a big deal of it. Right. So, just take some time, move on with class, and everything will be fine.
I'm going to tell you one AAU story, one business, right? Because my very first tournament with my son for AAU, when we had to get on a bus with all the parents, I had never been there before. I was married, but my husband couldn't go because of work. So I'm on this bus with these people. I have no clue how this thing goes. I'm a Midwest mom that I'm just champion. I mean, sportsmanship has been my number one importance of my kids all doing sports. That was all I cared about, right? And I'm raising human beings. I'm not raising athletes. But anyway, I'm on this bus. I have no clue what we're going to encounter. He actually was beginning of high school somewhere. And the first game, all of a sudden there's a brawl on the floor. And it is kids and it is parents and it is something. And they are starting to pull the physical people off. And on the bottom, which I, thought would be a dad or something, was a grandmother, right? And so a grandmother comes up holding a woman's hair back like this. Real story. And I'm sitting there going, now what I know that a lot of people don't is there's massive mix of socioeconomic playing AAU basketball. Mm-hmm. That grandmother came up to my face, which I wasn't involved. I was sitting on the stands just like, I don't quite know what to do, but I'm gonna shut my mouth and just, and she came up to me, looked me right in the face because I'm 5'2". A lot of people feel like they're able to just overpower me just because my size. It happens a lot, but I'm used to it. She came right into my face and she said, until you understand that gosh darn ball out there is oxygen for some of these kids. If they can't control that ball, they're not going to eat. They're not going to a scholarship. They're not going to. And she just screamed in my face for a few minutes. Okay. I am trying to calm myself down. I do understand pieces of that. However, we are playing in a game or a business that is regulated and things. She doesn't know while she's screaming at me, lady, I'm from the projects, while you're yelling at me and I'm, whatever. Sure. But the heat and the dynamic of that thing was not okay. And a lot of that behavior in certain AAU is a little bit, was back in the day acceptable. I don't know about it today. But we bring it into a business realm. And this is what it is on Lose with Class, at least for real estate. I've always had the idea of I'm not the agent for everybody. As they classically would try to train people of like, you try to be the agent no matter what. And no, my style's not right for you. I want you to be happy. I want it to be a good deal for you. I'm your person if we're a good match, if we work well together, And I think that's so much of it, and learning to cheer for everybody else, right? I'm thrilled you won. That was awesome because that motivated me, or that was cool to see. Sure. And I think a lot of people lose a bit of that, but some people are really good at that. And those are the ones that you look at them as a different player, a bit different business person or professional, when they're able to do all realms of that, of those pieces. Absolutely. Okay. So my last thing is, how would people be able to get a hold of you? So any way, whether that's, for business or those sorts of things, where can people find you and get a connection to you?
Well, Midwest Life Brokerage is the agency here in Naperville, Illinois.
Okay.
Our phone number, toll free, 866-LIFE-101 or 866-543-3101. You can email me at Chris with a K, KRIS at MWLB.com for Midwest Life Brokerage. And I'm on socials. I'm on Facebook. That's mostly poker stuff, though.
But under your name?
Necessarily business. Yeah, it's just my name. It's Chris Smith, MWLB. Chris Smith,
Okay.
MWLB. Yep.
Okay. And LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is Kristopher Smith with a K.
Yes.
I think I got to fix that, but you can find.
I like it. It's
Kristopher.
It's Kristopher Smith, and you know why I like the K? Don't keep the K. It's good because there are Smiths, but you're Kristopher with a K.
Yeah, I appreciate
it's good.
that.
Yeah, it's good. I appreciate you coming on here with me.
Of course,
I appreciate everything you've taught me. I appreciate our relationship Midwest and Florida as well, and all the other states. So 44 you're in, I'm going all over the place as well. I think that you and I hopefully have been able to share with people a different way to network and connect. And I think this is the cool part when, my philosophy is we're all on the playground learning together, and it's fun to do that with cool people and have different takeaways and help each other learn and have a good life as good human beings. So
love it.
I appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right. Have an awesome day. Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.